Hey all, Scott here, and welcome marketing rats. This is Marketing 101, the 101st edition of our marketing tutorials. Today I'm going to show you how to successfully market that Nintendo GameCube game that you're selling in 2018. Market it. Thanks for learning the ins and outs of marketing with me today. If you choose to purchase our next video release, I'll show you how to put a down payment on a house with just your signature on this piece of paper.
Yeah, I was in the video and even following the directions. I don't know why, I came out with bread. Mankind has achieved a multitude of amazing things, putting a man on the moon, the Great Pyramids, the continuous evolution of the sciences, but for some reason they made player's choice f***ing yellow, so might as well start over. Listen man, I do dig a hearty video game from time to time, and a good portion of that dig ratio is definitely playing said hearty video game. But once you're done playing it and put it back on the shelf, that's how it'll look for the majority of your life, sitting there, mainly serving as a conversation piece or incredibly expensive decor until you decide to pop it back in again. So I usually really do care on how the spine of a video game looks. I mean, I never won't buy a game because the spine is screech-inducing, but whenever I pick up a new title, the spine is one of the first things to look at because, well, that's how it'll look like when it's on my shelf. And let me tell you, I can't get enough of that darn consistency. If a video game library's boxes all line up with each other, oh boy, there's truly no other feeling like it. I know, I've talked scoliosis enough in the past. I'll make this little spine tangent as brief as I can possibly make a spine tangent. Take the PS4 games for example. They all have the same PS4 headers followed by a custom spine featuring the game logo and art. The fact that they all have their own custom art and logos with the same PS4 header, wow. Similar situation with the Wii, most game boxes are all white with the custom game logos. They just look really nice altogether. Yeah, some games have custom colored boxes like New Super Mario Bros. Wii's red one and Mario and Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games' yellow one, and while I would have preferred these boxes to be white like the rest, I can live with these. They're so infrequent that they mainly feel like special games, the picks of the litter, cool things to make them stand out from the rest. Now if 20% of the Wii library had a red case, that's when it would get a little on the too far side of things. When a good chunk of a game console's library has one specific design compared to the rest, the world's flippin' pissometers all collectively burst. The first half of the PS3's life had spines like these, and then they decided to switch the logo to something completely different. I do prefer the second logo, but man, if you alphabetize your games like I do, you just buy yourself a ticket to inconsistency jungle, an attraction that's borderline irritating. The Wii U's spines, however, were deservingly absent from the nominations at the Spinies years 2012 through 2017. They obviously tried to make them all consistent, but all it did was irk. They continually kept on flip-flopping between stock generic fonts and actual game logos. Like, why does Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, Star Fox Zero, and Game & Wario have their own logos, but then Splatoon, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, and New Super Mario Bros. U have this generic font? Then they allowed Capcom and Square Enix to make one game each with a black spine for some reason, and then they made Star Fox Guard's box have this eggnog stain of a color. Nintendo even forgot to add the blue ridge on the top of the Wii Sports Club box. I do prefer having colorful spines that feature art from the game and the game's logo, but if a game console library's spines are one way, game publishers, please follow in everybody else's footsteps. The Nintendo Switch library sees the majority of games use the same font on a red background, and while that doesn't leave a lot of room for creativity, it looks nice on a shelf. Except we have troublemakers in the form of Super Bomberman R. God, what is this? Not only is the title centered instead of left aligned like every other Switch game, but why is Konami's logo like this? Why? Overall, I like some consistency in my game boxes. Is it OCD? Well, as somebody who unknowingly has OCD would say, I don't know. So please take this into consideration when I paint this picture in your head. Popular must-have games, reprinted for low, low prices. I don't know about you, but I had myself at so please take this into consideration, but there's a catch. This thing looks miserable. This isn't a game, it's what people hold up in mugshots. Player's Choice, Greatest Hits, Platinum Hits, Nintendo Select, Sega All-Stars, they go by many names but serve one purpose: to muck up anybody's up-and-coming game collection and turn them into something foul. That's a nice looking GameCube library you have there. Holy shit, I made a huge mistake making that observation. The concept of these re-releases is great, being hit games at a price where they're practically giving them away. But they all mess it up hard by ruining the packaging with different colors, graphics, designs, whatever. They stick out like a sore thumb. Since these were re-releases, these are the most current prints of these games, meaning a lot of the time they're everywhere. They're the easiest to find, and every single major game company had their own line of these re-releases, and they all made sure they were eyesores for some reason. And the terminal illness started with Sega Classics on the Sega Genesis. Sega Classics aren't super awful, mainly because the Genesis games themselves don't follow a strict format. While many have the black grid or the red design, many don't at all and have their own custom one. It always felt weird to me that you were supposed to keep the Genesis cases due to their hard plastic, yet there was so much variation in the box art layout. While the SNES boxes were all incredibly unified in terms of design, yet Nintendo didn't expect you to put them on a shelf and keep them. They were just cardboard boxes. They were born to be thrown away. Speaking of which, the Super Nintendo and Game Boy were the first appearances of the term player's choice. Making amazing games like Super Mario All-Stars, A Link to the Past, and Super Metroid a measly $20 is awesome. And the way they went about these re-releases on the SNES was tolerable in my opinion. The cartridges now have a player's choice ribbon graphic on them, and the line on the label changed from red to golden. Not a big issue in my opinion. I mean, A Link to the Past re-release is uproariously apparent you have the re-release, but the majority of player's choice on SNES ain't that bad. The same goes for N64. Nintendo did a very similar thing with these re-releases, just popping a ribbon graphic on them. If I could choose, I would definitely pick up the original copies, but in my opinion, if you have the player's choice copies of SNES and N64 games, I won't completely disregard you. Now Game Boy is where we start to get fucky. God, these boxes look tart. Literally, they couldn't just stop at a ribbon graphic. They had to change the entire Game Boy logo. Thankfully, the cartridge itself only has the ribbon on it, but was this really necessary? However, Nintendo decided that wasn't enough and decided to go full-on sociopath with player's choice on GameCube. This is horrendous, replacing the black labels with yellow ones. The front box art and spine are affected here. It could have been worse. But come on, they could have chosen any other color. They chose yellow. The only thing I can think of for the reasoning behind the hard color change is that Nintendo believed that consumers would be attracted to the yellow, as it would yell to them saying, "Hey, I'm a best-selling game at a crazy low price." The thing is, I don't think any consumer knew why these games were yellow, and I think if anybody had an option, they'd go with the black GameCube games because that fits snugly with the rest of their collection. Also, from what I've heard, games can't yell. It's like Nintendo has a mentality, when a consumer sees a player's choice title, they know they're in for gallons of joy at a price to die for. No! Nobody thinks that! Just the fact that these games are at a low price should be enough to grab a consumer's attention. Why'd they have to smear yellow all over the place? And at that point, why not just add a graphic to the front cover and call it a day? Why the spine, which nobody would see in most retailers? Why does it have to be obliterated in this process? The Game Boy Advance had the right idea. It had the same player's choice graphic, but it was only on the front cover and nowhere else, not on the spine of the box. And even then, most people threw the GBA boxes away, so with these things, I would have been more than okay with the disease spreading to the spine. But nope, they had to put it on their home console with cases people actually kept. Even though I hate the yellow player's choice label with a passion, I'm still stuck wondering who got it worse, the US or Europe? Huh. Nintendo moved on from player's choice and now refers to their budget gaming line as Nintendo Select, starting with the Wii and continuing on with the 3DS and Wii U. These, I'm way more into. The spines only have a small medallion on the bottom, and that's cool with me. It's not jarring, and many games have a graphic on the bottom like this anyway, so it doesn't stick out hard. I mean, if I have the option, I'd definitely trade these out for the original prints, but I don't have a problem sleeping at night with these games in my collection. Japan never got Nintendo Selects or even Player's Choice. Instead, they have the happy price selection for the 3DS, which, hey, if you want to feel like you're buying a puppet show instead of a game, the happy price selection has you covered. The Nintendo DS never had a Nintendo-managed budget software lineup, but that didn't stop Konami from re-releasing their own games under their own ulcer of a packaging. This is the kind of box art that raises more questions than answers. The disease spreads further. Sony is just as guilty with these types of packaging. PlayStation uses the moniker Greatest Hits, and the PS1 had this ooze onto the front cover. Honestly, this isn't my least favorite in the world. It's not good by any means, but it looks far nicer than what the PS2 got. Jesus man, who in the right mind said, burgundy? How is this color appealing to anybody below the age of 80? And why is the header now curved? PS3, we have red. Better than the PS2, but still not the greatest in the world because now the case is red too. Speaking of red, Sega had one more crack at the re-releases with the Dreamcast in the form of Sega All-Stars, which are basically less annoying forms of the PS1's greatest hits. But we still have this monstrosity to go over. Xbox's Platinum Hits. Microsoft made sure you damn well knew you had a Platinum Hits copy of a game, as the entirety of the box is coded in this thing. The header, the box art itself has a border, the spine, including where the game logo is. It's just creamed to bits. I mean, at least it's silver, which is a pretty conservative and nice looking color. It does clash with the others, but at least it's not yellow compared to black or burgundy compared to black. I don't know, I don't like these at all, but I still have a burning hatred for Player's Choice and Greatest Hits from that generation. But don't worry everybody, Microsoft redeemed themselves in terms of not pissing me off enough, because let's talk about the Xbox 360 generation, where they had so many different designs for Platinum Hits games, it's hard to keep track of. The first design was this, basically a border around the box art and the spine where the game's logo was changed to be this gray thing. Honestly, honestly, not that bad. It doesn't really stick out that much in comparison to other games. Then they change it to this, where Platinum Hit spreads to the header and enlarges the spine's header as well. This one is gross. I hate the fact that the 360 header on the spine is way longer than it needs to be. After this, there were a few Platinum Hits that just had a simple logo on the front cover with nothing else, and my god, this is how you do it. Just a little graphic on the front is fine, it's perfect. After these non-complaints, Microsoft went back to the drawing board and came back with this. What is this? So the header is the same elongated one from before, but now with a gradient from gray to white. I never liked how the text was in white, so it got harder and harder to read against the gradient. But why? Why is the spine white with the most stock generic font imaginable? There's no reason for this. Why does it look this way? Recently, Microsoft has re-released Xbox 360 games that are backwards compatible with the Xbox One in this new packaging that looks like the Xbox One boxes, but absolutely not at the same time. I hate these too. Like, why not put a graphic on the original releases that just says playable on Xbox One? Instead, you have it clash with the rest of your Xbox library no matter what console you have. Have an Xbox 360? Doesn't look right next to the rest of the games. Xbox One? Same thing because it's a standard DVD case compared to the Blu-ray size cases of the Xbox One. There is no reason why these re-releases should stick out this badly. And you know what's even worse? Some games were exclusively released in this packaging. Pikmin 2's Wii release took a while to get here in North America, and when it did, Nintendo slapped a Nintendo Selects border on it. Why? This game was never released in North America. How can it already be a Nintendo Select? Some people go for complete sets of these re-releases, and you know, that must be a fun thing to collect. Good on those people. But for everybody else, if you just wanted to play Super Mario Sunshine and have the Player's Choice copy, it looks janker than jank next to the rest of your games, and it doesn't need to be. They didn't have to change the look of the spines, they didn't have to change the color of the cases, they could have just popped a graphic on the front that said bestseller, lower the MSRP, and call it a day. But the fact that they went the extra mile deserves a solid shake of the fist. And thus, it was torn, it being that, because that tears it. I'm gonna form a strongly worded verbal letter to Nintendo about these roadkills of re-releases. Hey, Nintendo! Why'd you have to make Player's Choice so lame?
Well, sir, it was the player's choice.
Oh god. We did this.